Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anywho, we're live now, guys. Just wanted to put that out there. Just out of the blue. No throw up one this time here, guys. But hello, everyone. Welcome to the Roundtable. We have three fantastic guests. Some of you guys are very familiar with them. We have Dave McGuinness of the Two Davies. We have Daily Blasé, of course, and we have GRAEMEPRYCE of Power to the People. Thank you guys all for coming on. I really appreciate it. For the first Roundtable of 2026, I just want to let you guys in the chat know before I did say to the guys before we went live, I've got a banging headache, so I'm going to try and let my colleagues contribute more than I do, just because of it. I do apologize, but obviously, while I've been trying to get rid of this headache, I've had no choice but to follow latest events, because I'm sure some of you guys are aware of what's been going on. Today has been a crazy day in British politics, really. And there's a lot to break down with it, because you have, so this was I don't know if this was actually planned to happen today, or if it was a case of happening before the local elections. So for those who aren't aware of today's big news, Robert Jenrick has officially Robert Jenrick was the whip was removed from him by Kemi Baganout after they discovered his resignation letter was, funnily enough, just left on the side by a printer or something that was found at Conservative HQ somehow. So I'm not sure if that was. I don't know how you make a mistake like that. As soon as Kemi was aware of this, she immediately put out a video, released a statement, basically saying that the whip's been removed, he's been suspended, yada yada yada. At the exact same time this happened, Nigel Farage was holding a press conference in Scotland. Announced, I believe it was announcing the new Scottish leader for Reform UK. Correct me if I'm wrong, David. Yes, thank you. There. So yeah, you had that going on. He didn't acknowledge that he had joined Reform UK, Robert Jenrick, but he did say he had conversations with him. And then obviously loads of YouTubers and influencers obviously jump on the bandwagon and say, we don't know, Robert Jenrick's been left out in the cold and whatnot. And then fast forward just a couple of hours ago, Nigel Farage had another press conference with Robert Jenrick, and was unveiled as a new member of Reform UK. Jenrick, of course, being the loyal Conservative as he was, attacked literally everyone, blamed everyone for everything that went wrong with the last 20 years, blaming Conservatives and Labour, which we all agree Conservatives and Labour have not done enough yet for the UK as a whole, not just England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, obviously, respectfully there. Both main political parties have not done enough there. But Jenrick, obviously, just shows kind of what kind of a real person he is by literally slagging off all his colleagues that he considered friends and allies and all this kind of stuff, while also slagging them off at the same time. And it's just like unbelievable. I can't remember the headline of what I don't know what the headline of the video was from Politics Joe when they put it up, but it was just like but it just summed up kind of just how sad and pathetic this is. What David, I want to start with you first. What was your initial reaction when you heard that, before even we knew about obviously Jenrick joining Reform, but what was your initial reaction when you heard about Kemi basically doing what she did and removing the whip from him and everything? What was your initial reaction to it all, really?
My initial reaction was that she was eliminating a potential contender for her job. That was my initial reaction. And then as we get into the story, we realised that the silly bugger had double printed what it was he was going to do, but had only lifted one copy because he only thought he'd one copy.
Oh, I didn't know that bit.
Next to the printer. That's just comedy gold. That is where UK politics up. Okay. The incompetence of it is mind-boggling.
Well, he'll fit right in with Reform then, won't
he? Oh, Darren, what did you make of it all when you first heard this story? Come on.
Well, well, first let's just say when you mentioned that that double resignation letter, I thought I think to myself, I don't think his alter ego Adam West and Burt Ward would have done something as bad as that. Would
He probably
Holy
said,
catfish, Batman! What's
probably-
this?
he probably said to himself, "Fuck's sake! I said one copy, not two."
Yeah, but I have to say, I was listening to James O'Brien's show while I was doing whatever I was doing, just some bit of background noise, and then he brought it out, and he thought, and when I heard it, I thought, oh wow, and there's so much to basically what's the word I'm after? You know, there's so much to
Digest.
comprehend. That's the word I'm after. Cheers for that, Dave. And because you're thinking, does that make her look strong? Does it? Doesn't it? Because like you think to yourself, well, he's been acting like a buffoon for how long? And I've been watching House of Commons where they're talking about taking the piss out of her, you know, saying about the MP for Newark, you know, he's doing his job at interviews for your job. So he's been undermining her for how long? So I'm thinking, why now? Why now? So there's been a lot, and it also shows to you that it shows you what a snake the man is. This is, as I say, this man was on the side of Remain.
This is a guy that makes Michael Gove look like an honest, upright.
Yeah.
I mean, Gove was lower than the snake's belly, and this guy's below the barrel.
Oh yeah. Because and all of a sudden you just see him slowly turning, just as the political the Overton window, I suppose you could say, is sort of like shifting further and further to the right, and all of a sudden this you know, central One Nation Tory becomes this absolute lunatic to a point where he's deciding to, you know, he thinks it's a good idea to paint over murals at a child asylum seeker centre.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an absolute monster.
Yeah. And for me, I just personally think that he will just put his finger out up like that, see which wind is blowing there. Right, that's where my political agenda is going. And it's the same with Liz Truss, you know, Nadine Dorries. And I was sat there thinking, also, if he's going to join Reform, what are the Reform supporters going to think about it?
Well, my political partner, when we did the shows the other day, he was saying to me today, they need to change their name from Reform to Conform because we've got that many Tories there.
Yeah.
Graham, what was your initial reaction when you heard it all going down?
I wasn't really surprised. I was surprised it was him, but I think there's going to be more. But I immediately thought, like Dave said, she's got rid of her opposition there, hasn't she? I think she's going to be leader of the Tories for quite some time now. I also think that I think if this is all true with the letter and everything, she's seized on it as an opportunity to present herself as being decisive and strong as well. But she couldn't really have done anything else, could she?
No.
But she has done it in quite a slick way and presented herself quite well, I think. And for me to say anything good about Kemi Badenoch, you know.
It was no accident she did it at the time when Reform were doing their press conference as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I generally think that they found out.
Me was she got the boot in first. It was discovered and she got the boot in first.
Yeah, I don't know when they obviously found out, but they must have found out quite early on, and they made the decision. Let's do this as soon as Farage goes live with the press conference, and kind of like try and get an upper hand. Because if you think about it, like this is like obviously the idea was basically I'm assuming the original plan, what I suspect was that he was to be unveiled was it supposed to be today? Was it actually the plan?
Yeah, 4:30 today, this afternoon. He was
so it
supposed
was
to
planned
resign,
today.
and
Okay.
he was supposed to resign and join Reform at the same time.
Ah,
He was
Right.
going to read that speech,
Hmm.
and then Nigel was going to come on stage and welcome him to Reform.
Yeah, because they published a speech, the Conservatives, and that's why he was late coming out, because he had to rewrite some of the speech because they got a hold of his speech as well. So yeah,
In a way,
really,
it
when
shows
it
that
comes
she's been
to,
totally vindicated, hasn't it?
when it comes to understanding what's going on in your party, it shows the Tories were on the ball, actually.
hmm.
and now I think it's a slightly concerning display of political skill by Kemi Badenoch. I think I didn't think she was smart enough to do something like that, but I think she caught it well today. Unfortunately,
I think the other thing as well, I think it will rally a lot of Conservative voters and maybe some politicians who are still in belief of the party, because there's there's no question there's a lot of them are thinking about defecting. A lot of them are feeling like the ship is sinking and whatnot.
yeah,
it may galvanize what happened possibly as well.
It's a sub story in UK politics at the moment, the battle for control of the right wing. We've got a three-way toss-up here. We've got Kemi, we've got Farage, and we've got Starmer, and they're all trying to win the right for some mad reason.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why Starmer has found himself sort of handcuffed and muted at this point in time is because his backbenchers have realised what's happening. And a lot of good people on these backbenches in Labour who've realised this guy's went rogue and he's moving this party too far to the right. Tony Blair did enough to move it when they moved it to the centre, but then to move it so far right, even though Tony Blair did take it just slightly right on the Overton window, as we like to call it, the 10 most prevalent questions of the day and how you answer them, measures of whether you're on the left, the right, or the centre. And Blair just went slightly off centre, which was acceptable. But Starmer has taken it all the way by taking the battle to the right by being as right as the right. And that's no. And when we talk about right and left wing, it's very important we understand where they stand and where the centre ground is. And when we look at the history of politics through the last... We'll look at history of the last 30 years of politics, 40 years. We've seen the British establishment move more and more to the right and become more and more authoritarian. I don't think any of us could deny that. We've watched it happen in front of our eyes. Well, Darren, myself, and Graham have you're a wee bit younger than us, Reagan. But you'll have been at the tail end yet coming through the Blair years. And Tony Blair, he committed the greatest heist in UK political history, and people still haven't got their head wrapped around it. And what was that heist? It was a tax credit system and the minimum wage. Because what happened was, I ended up paying extra tax to subsidise my wife's wage. And that's a heist. It meant that the employer didn't have to pay a living wage anymore. It could pay a minimum wage and steal the profit which should have went to the worker. And the fact that people didn't get it at the time. I remember Liverpool and Glasgow screaming about this in 1997, 1998, 2001, 2002, as the tax credit system came in. And we started to realise that they were going to tax the middle classes to top up the wages of the lower classes, meaning that the bosses kept the lion's share of the wage. And that's where this wealth inequality comes from that we've had in our society for the last 30, 40 years. The mere fact that people can't grasp it and get their head around it is phenomenal to me. I've been shouting about this, and probably Graham was as well back in that day when they were introducing this system. And here's another thing that's interesting. You can Google this. This is true. Sorry, use your search engine. I don't want to promote any search engine. But you can put into your search engine what your wages would have been if it was inflation that was driving your wages and no the government setting a minimum wage. And you would be 17% better off today than what you were before Tony Blair committed that heist and the biggest transfer of wealth in our public history from the people to the elite. Because what happened was the bosses didn't have to pay a living wage anymore. I was topping up my wife's wage because she was on the minimum wage, which was set by the government, and I wasn't. So at that point in time, her wage was down there, mine was up there, mine's dropped to here because I was being taxed more to supplement her wage to bring it up to a level with mine. And that's nuts. It meant
See,
that
it was already like that when I started working. I think I started working in about 2001. I left school in like 96 and I did a few years in catering college. And then it took me a while to get a job. So I just accepted that it was like that when I started. I never really noticed the change.
Well, I started to work in 1983.
Yeah, wouldn't mean 2000.
The best part of a decade before. And to be fair, comparable what I could get to my wage when you from my smaller wage for what you could get with your wage and the time that you started work. A decade earlier, I could buy twice as much as you could buy with that starting wage of yours,
Yeah.
you know. So, but as I say, people have to get a grip of history and start to have a look at history. And the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of the UK was under Tony Blair when they set up the tax credit system and imposed minimum wage on the worker, which took inflation out of the game. Now, inflation generally runs about 3%. Once the minimum wage was introduced, the average rise was about 0.5% to 1%. So fast forward to where we are now, your wages are suppressed by 17%. That's a phenomenal amount. And that's what we call a heist. It was a transfer of wealth. The company owners were no longer responsible to make sure that the people they employed had the fair share to keep them be able to live a decent life. It meant that me, you, and anybody else that was on the medium wage was paying extra tax to top up the minimum wage. It was an outrageous idea, and it was the biggest political heist and the biggest bank robbery that ever happened in the history of our politics. But I better shut up and let somebody else talk.
No, I think it's very important to remind people of why people's wages are where they are, and one of many factors of why we have inequality in our society.
And if Dave feels like that, he's not the only person. There must be loads of people that feel like that who remember working at that time as well.
Yeah, it's not just to remember working at that time. It was the understanding that people didn't understand at that time who was going to pay to top up that minimum wage.
Yeah,
they thought it was going to be the company owners directed by government to pay a decent wage. That's not what the government did. The government took inflation out of the game and suppressed wages. And any of us back then who could see what was going to happen going forward, and I was one of them, was screaming about it at the time. Or said this is going to make us poorer. There must have been at least 100,000 of us all voicing it at the time. But who listens to the average Joe? Even if the average Joe can see what's happening in front of their faces.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to follow on from that, really. I mean, it's when you see what's happened over the last 20 years or so, and how people's wages have changed, and even now to this date, I mean, I suppose we might as well go into the cost of living, really, because like still to this day, we have so many people who are working 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week, and they still can't afford a home. They still and a single person can't essentially, like, on an average job, on a decent salary, can't afford a home, or they could barely afford the rent, and it's ridiculous. And even in a relationship, let me just make this point here, because like I think it was how long ago was it when I was working as a store assistant manager, and I was earning I was earning a fairly decent amount, and my partner still earning a fairly decent amount. And both of us combined, like we were building up the money, and we were thinking, like, you know, finding to get a mortgage and finally have a home and whatnot. And I was just looking at the numbers, and I was just like, it's just not going to work. It was just not going to work, even though both of us are like, and this is not us on the minimum wage. Both of us were earning decent money, really good, no, typical decent money for the jobs that we were doing. And it hit me so hard, the reality of, yeah, we just ain't going to be able to buy a home. And I just thought, like, I just didn't. And the other thing was crossing my mind was I just don't know if I'll be able to pay off this mortgage in the long term. You know, do I really want to be spending 30, 40, 50 years trying to pay off this mortgage? Because, you know, so many things were running in my head. And so I made a conscious decision. I said, like, I want to have a home too, but like, I want to be realistic about what we can and can't earn, you know.
I'm going to say something to you here that we might not get because you're quite young, but you did the right thing not buying at your particular age. Because if you bought, you were tied to an area and you're no sociably, you have no social mobility. So if a better life chance comes up for you and that sweet wee lassie that I've met somewhere else on these islands, because you own a property, it would make it harder for you to move. Now, the whole idea of social housing after the Second World War was it gave us social mobility. So if me in Glasgow with a skill that wasn't needed, but it was needed in Birmingham, then I could easily move because there'd be social housing there for me. Or equally in London or in a Liverpool or in Manchester. You know, when you tie yourself to a property, and I have, by the way, I can't lie, I've built my home. But that was late on in life because I'd already decided where I wanted to be. But when you're young, you need to be socially mobile. And in order to be socially mobile, so you can fill a skills gap somewhere in these islands, you need to have social housing available. And that's why
I don't mind renting. I don't want to own a house, really. I'm all right renting, but I wish that I had a council house rather than a private rent, because my landlord can decide he wants to sell a house whenever he wants, and I've got 6 months at best to find somewhere else, and it'd be hard around here.
Yeah, you didn't go into 3 months like I did. I had 3 months in my first rented after. To be fair, I will say this though: the landlords that I had, my first ever landlords that I was with for 5 years, they were incredibly good. But as soon as they decide to sell, I had literally 3 months to find another place.
Now remember how much easier it was when it was all council controlled social housing. You had social mobility, which meant you could move to improve your and your family's lives, and you'd guaranteed housing when you got there.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we look at the socialist experiment from 1947 to 1979, some really great stuff comes out of it that we need to pick up in our society, like social rented housing. You know, I mean, there were some great things happened, and great innovations happened after the Second World War, 1947 onwards.
Yeah.
The NHS, the mass rebuilding of towns with quality social housing, the ability to move from city to city where your skills were needed, all grew out of that stuff. And then we take it up to 80, 81, 82, it was all flogged off by Thatcher. And that anchored people to the areas they were brought up in. It ended social mobility, and it was the start of the death of the economy.
If I remember rightly, what Tory MP Ian Gower came out with the idea for right to buy.
But what it did was it tied people to a location, which meant that if there was a skills gap elsewhere and you had that skill, you couldn't go because you were tied to the bricks and mortar.
No.
Whereas prior to that, you would have went from one social house to another social house and filled that skills gap. And while you were there, you'd have trained more people to do what you were doing, which meant that skills gap would cease to exist. And that's what happened when we sold off the council housing. We lost that social mobility and that ability to share skills from one part of the UK to another part of the UK. And all that learning was lost. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I might be a wee bit deep tonight.
Oh no, it is. But
Hey, I think no, it's important to remind ourselves of these things. Let's obviously we went from, I don't know how we went from Robert Jenrick to that,
He was housing minister at one point, I think, wasn't he?
yeah, but
I think
I mean,
we went from the fight for control of the right wing in the UK to why the right wing's a bad idea in the UK.
yeah. The right wing is a bad idea. I don't know, like, so we have this major battle taking place, obviously, between the Conservatives and Reform right now on the right, and we have some really important elections coming up. Very important elections in Scotland, very important elections in Wales. Not so much. I would say they are still important to. They are still important in England, but obviously there's a lot of conversation about a lot of them being delayed. A lot of them
25 councils at last count, Reagan.
What's that, Ken?
25 councils at last count and 2.5 million people won't get to vote when they should be allowed to vote.
Well, this is the other thing as well with it, is that we know that there is that one of the potential reasons why the Labour are doing this, and also why councils are saying this, and it's not just Labour controlled councils, it's other different ones as well. It's because of the mergers of some councils, is what they are doing.
No, it's not unprecedented either.
It's going to be, what they're claiming is it's going to do with regional devolution. So what you're talking about, Reagan, is what they're doing is they're parcelling up a group of councils and saying, we'll make you a devolved region and give you a mayor.
Yeah. Which
you'll run that region.
And the argument is that it doesn't make any sense, for them to spend taxpayers on an election when there's no point, when after they have, even if they have the election after, it just means that borough's not going to cease to exist because they're changing it up. This is the argument.
And there is a bit of merit in this. What happens really is they've got to find out how to get the 13 or 14 county councils in that region that's about to be created to cooperate together and reduce the amount of representation and centralise a government over that 13 regions. It's no as if it's an uncomplicated thing. It is a complicated thing. It could, but we've seen it before, and it turned out to be a disaster. Under Tony Blair, we had the super regions, the big regions. Like here in Scotland, we went from 32 council areas to 8. But these council areas became so big and so unwieldy, they became unmanageable.
Yeah,
that meant things like basic refuge collection, keeping the parks clean, keeping the streets clean. It became unmanageable because what happened was, as they consolidated these councils, they looked at them and said, what do we no need? And they went, well, we can centralise this, we can centralise that, we can cut this, we can cut that. And that's how we go to the disaster we have today.
That's the word you just said there, cutting. This is what it all feels like. It's just cutting, and trying to.
Instead of needing 13 HR departments, you'll now only need 1. Instead of needing 13 pay departments, you now only need 1. Instead of needing 13 different councils with other committees and other costs, you now have 1. That's allegedly what it does to cut costs. Reality, looking back at history, that's not how it works.
I know, because all of those places have suddenly got to lay people off, and those people have got to find jobs.
That's right. Yep. But more importantly, while that's happening, your local services are going to shit.
Yeah.
And we also got the acceleration of artificial intelligence, which they're going to be implementing more and more, which means there's going to be less use of staff and going to be more use of artificial intelligence to respond to these things.
Definitely.
Which is also what's coming down the road as well.
Well, that's exactly what the UK government is at the moment. They're looking at laying off the civil service and replacing it with AI.
Yeah.
That's
what could possibly go wrong?
Well,
I'll
it's
tell you when
funny.
John Fight
People have never
meets
seen
Chinese
Terminator, isn't it?
I will touch on. It's actually funny you say that, but I don't want to pivot to America because there is something related to AI there that's about to happen. That's gonna, really send the country into shambles if it already isn't in shambles. But like these local elections obviously are really, really huge. They're really, really significant. Obviously, right now the polls are predicting Keir Starmer's Labour government is to get smashed in Wales, smashed in Scotland, and smashed in many parts of England. The chances are of him making it to the end of this year is unlikely. However, many people didn't expect Kemi Badenoch to have the turn in the polls that she's had. Didn't expect the Conservatives. There's a possibility that Kemi Badenoch is going to make it all the way to the general election, possibly.
I think this is what happened
when she first was a leader and when she first had prime minister's questions and some of the things and whatnot, I was like many people just thinking, oh, she's a goner, like she's absolutely bloody useless, she doesn't know what she's doing. Now though, it feels like she's a bit more stable.
Yeah.
They do have some policies, even though a lot of them are just rip-off reform policies, but they do have some policies now. And there are some polls where there are some people who are going back to the Conservatives from reform, although polls are only they just change they always change all the time. But it seems like the Conservatives, for everything there seems to be some signs of stability there. And I'm still not 100% convinced they're going to get completely slaughtered at the local elections. Wales and Scotland would be different because I don't see the benefit in those two countries for the Conservatives. But England, I don't think they're going to get hit as hard.
I hope not.
Darren, before Dave, I'll just let Darren come in. What do you honestly think how do you think the local elections are going to pan out right now, given where we are? I mean, there's a lot to have between now and May.
Yeah, they always say a week's a long time in politics, isn't it? So what could I? For me, I have a funny feeling. I don't think reform will do as good as what they think they're going to do.
I don't.
From what I can hear, they are because I think that before it just seemed to be like either Tories or reform or Labour. Now, if you're absolutely down the rabbit hole, you've got Ben Habib's Advance, and you've got Nick Tencorney's batshit crew at UKIP.
Advance UK, is it? From Advance UK with
and you've got racist Rupert's whatever he's doing. So they have other options as well, and with them bringing in all the Tory cast-offs into reform. And like I watched a video for a guy he was Reform UK's representative for South West Derbyshire, and he said, "I'm resigning. This is just Tory 2.0." And he did this in January 2025. He made this video in and then he rehashed it after they'd brought in Warm Horses at that press conference on Monday, and he said, I feel totally vindicated now. And I think there will be a lot of unhappy reform supporters unhappy with what they're saying, because why would they vote for a Tory-like reform when they want to get rid of the Tories?
Yeah.
And so especially also when it comes to the situation with what's been happening down in Kent County Council, I'm getting a lot of information from a unnamed councillor that I keep in contact with. He gives me a lot of information, and it's an absolute clusterfuck down there. And it's the same over in Durham, and they're getting all the press about it. So I'm not so sure that reform will do as well as what they're hoping. I also think the Caerphilly voting proved that maybe they're not as popular as they'd like to think they are, and so it's going to be interesting. I still have that feeling that Labour will get a bit of a pounding, because let's be honest with Labour, they're all over the place at the moment, aren't they? They are all over the place, and so it's going to be very, very interesting to see which way it goes.
How do you feel the local elections are going to be, Graham, at the moment?
I think if I was expecting Labour to do well, I'd be kidding myself. So I'm not expecting that. But it'll be interesting to see if Reform don't do as well as the media seem to want us to think they're going to. Because I think this today will take some votes away from them. And there's a lot of people just hate Nigel Farage. You know, there's a lot. All right, yeah, there's a lot like him, but it's like, I think he's trying to be the British Trump, isn't he? And he's like that. There's a small percentage that really like him, and then there's a few others that, you know, sort of vote Reform because they're not the Tories or Labour. They don't really know anything about Lib Dem. And I think people like that, they're not going to come out in as much number this time. Whereas people who don't want Reform to win, they're going to come out in more numbers in these local elections. So I don't think it's going to be as good for Reform as I think it is. But I do think that Labour are going to take quite a big hit on it, especially in Wales and Scotland.
Dave, what do you make of the upcoming local elections, in particular for Scotland, with regards to Reform in there?
On local elections, because we're not having local elections, we're having regional elections.
Apologies, regional elections.
And I think at the end of these elections, you're going to have Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland who don't want to be in this union. Because remember, you've got a nationalist government in Northern Ireland, you'll have a nationalist government in Scotland, you'll have a nationalist government in Wales, and I think the situation is going to start to get a bit untenable when you've got Westminster trying to control 3 parliaments that don't want anything to do with that parliament. And that's how significant these elections are. Now, while in England you're focused on local representation and local issues, we here in Scotland and Wales are focused on national issues, even though, because we're part of the UK, we have to say regional issues, because they're regional elections. We're devolved administrations. We're not recognised as countries in our own right. So what's really going to be interesting at the end of these elections is that you're going to have 3 of the 4 constituent parts that don't want to be in the United Kingdom. And that's a fascinating situation to be in. And I know that the people in England won't be focused on that. They won't be thinking on that. But fortunately, I'm on your channel tonight, REGANELITE, where most of your viewers will be in England. And it might give them a wee bit food for thought that after these elections, it's very possible that 3 of the 4 constituent parts of this union no longer wish to be in it.
I generally mean this. I really actually, you know, as a some people may find this surprising, but as an Englishman, I actually do want the SNP to do well in Scotland. I want Clive Cymru to do well for Wales. I can't speak enough about Northern Irish politics, so they don't cover it specifically. But I generally mean this. Like, people need to have their voices heard, and for a long time, people have not been having their voices heard, and it's really important. It's really important to have people to have their say. The Conservatives and Labour have not been doing that. I just haven't been doing enough of that. I really hope Reform. I really do hope Reform does get pushed back out of Scotland and out of Wales, because after the general election there was that concern. There was voters in not just in England but in Scotland and in Wales. They were low numbers, but there were people who were turning to them. And I'd like to think
actually numbers are quite high here in Scotland. Reform are sitting second in the polls, even though they're 15 points behind the SNP.
Why has it grown so much in Scotland, do you think?
Because people here are really disenfranchised from the UK government, and people who would traditionally vote for UK parties were looking at Labour and Tory and going, can't do it. Nigel's the alternative that's been offered up. It's as simple as that. For people who are entrenched in this idea of the union, they have to vote for somebody, and they really don't fancy Labour or Conservative at this point in time.
You can't blame
Reform
them.
is the only real non-pro-independence alternative. So we have Reform at 17% in the polls, Labour at 14% in the polls, Tories and Lib Dems at 13% in the polls here in Scotland. The Greens 9% in the polls here in Scotland for this election. And the Alpha Party, which you guys won't know anything about, on 1% in the polls in the party.
They still exist.
Just about, aye. Just about. Get a couple of months, Reagan, they'll have disappeared off the planet, aye.
Yeah, for those who don't know, you have to look them up, because that's how irrelevant they're becoming. But they still haven't gone, guys. Interesting. Yeah, there was some new polling I saw from Wales. The Welsh poll this week put Labour in a very poor 4th place, and if it stays like that, Labour could have only 8 seats out of 96. That's a massive change for Wales.
The big thing about it was, REGANELITE, it was a YouGov poll. It was the big boys. It wasn't as if it was Surveyation or a Find Out Now or one of the smaller players that are on the polling council and are recognised as, official polling bodies here in the UK. It was the big one. It was the monster, the one that polls the whole planet. Actually, YouGov. You can get a YouGov poll in America, YouGov poll in Australia and New Zealand.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. They are.
They're everywhere. And that YouGov poll had put a Labour 4th in Wales and 3rd in Scotland. It tells you how much trouble they're in.
It does, because they've been in power for Wales for such a long time, a very, very long time.
The other thing you remember for this election, we're already covered the first week. The starting pistol for this election, the official election period, started on the 7th of January. There is 14 weeks of campaigning and then 2 weeks of purdah. To let people understand what happens is they get to campaign for this next 14 weeks, and then the 2 weeks in the run up to the election, we go into a period of time called purdah.
So we're usually only here when there's a general election on the horizon.
Aye. And what happens in that period? Well, it's a general election for us here in Scotland.
Yeah.
So during that period of purdah, the people are supposed to reflect on what they've learned over the previous 14 weeks before they go to the polls. So the way elections work here is you'll have a 16-week period in the run-up to an election, but you'll only have 14 weeks of campaigning. The last 2 weeks is set aside specifically for the people to take their time to reflect on what they've learned and decide how they're supposed to vote or how they're going to vote.
Nowadays, they've got all the papers going mental and social media trying to tell them what to do in that time.
Yes. But the main thing is the parties can't make new offers during that fortnight.
Yeah.
That would be breaking electoral law.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in the Scottish referendum when the couple of days before, the Westminster government specifically broke electoral law when the three amigos come up that road and put a new offer to people of Scotland 7 days out from the poll. Offering.
The Tories broke the law whenever they felt like for years, though, didn't they? There were loads of occasions when they just flagrantly broke the law and nobody did anything about it.
Correct, and that's the reason why they do it, because the Electoral Commission has no teeth.
Exactly.
And of course, we know the Conservative Party last time round, just before Starmer came in, actually voted the Electoral Commission into government. And Starmer's done nothing about making it an independent watchdog again.
See?
Yeah, that's problematic. And in terms of England, how do we think the Green Party may do? Because someone brought up a great point. Obviously, we talk a lot about those on the right, the parties on the right. This is Zach Polanski's first opportunity as the Green leader to kind of, he's done a lot of talking. They've set their policies quite clear, what they're going to be doing for England and Wales. And now it's a real case. It's going to be a very interesting test, I think, to say, because there's been a lot of the youth in England and Wales are very much applied probably a bit more. Applied probably having some of that youth as well. I was saying Wales respectfully there, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. But in terms of England, the number of youngsters are looking to support and get behind the Greens far outweighs any other political party when it comes to the younger vote.
Yeah.
But how much of those youngsters are going to come out and vote for the Greens at these local elections? Exactly. That's going to be the real question here. And I would hope that, considering that the Greens do have a pretty decent social media campaign, it's not the greatest, but I think it's a hell of a lot better than Labour and the Conservatives. I would say. I think Reforms is still too good because they've still got far too big of a followings on their platforms. But I think there is an opportunity for them to galvanise a lot of youngsters into these local elections. Graham, how do you feel about the Green Party and their chances in these local elections? Like, we don't expect them to do like sweep the board or anything, but we would I suppose my level of expectation says I want to see some success. I want to see progress.
Yeah, I think they'll make steady gains. I don't think they'll make any giant leaps anywhere, but I think they'll pick up more than they lose. And Zach Plansky, I don't know. He's an interesting chap, isn't he? But maybe that's a good thing. I heard that he challenged Nigel Farage to a debate, and he's counting the days since he's refused to debate him. So, I think stuff like that's good. He seems to have a bit more, I don't know what the word is, a bit more charisma than Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch, doesn't he?
He's not boring. That's the difference. Yeah. That's the word I would use. He's not boring. Darren, how do you feel about politics on the left with the Green Party? And what's your gut feeling at the moment for them
at the local elections? Well, it's low turnout, so they've got a pretty good chance, haven't they? So they've got it's a little bit like Reform. They probably make gains more, with low turnout. That's to their advantage. So I think they'll do pretty well because I haven't really seen too much of what he does and what he says, but it does seem I've seen the odd video here and there, and the only one I didn't like was the Christmas one. I kind of cringed at that one a little bit. He's doing his Ghost of Christmas Past bit. I just cringed. I went.
I didn't see it, but I've heard it's not very good.
Yeah. I just thought, no, don't try and be that frustrated performer, because he doesn't really suit you. Just do something that comes naturally to you, because talk in front of the camera. I think the song when he's walking on the streets, and it looked pretty good. So it's quite media savvy, so I think they'll do pretty well, actually.
I think at the end of the night they'll be happy, but it won't be a landslide. Not a landslide. It won't be an earthquake sort of event.
What it will do is it'll indicate how further Zach's moving them forward, because as we all know, when you're building a political party, the councils is where you cut your teeth.
Yeah.
Even with Reform, even with UKIP, we've seen that. It's where you cut your teeth. It's where you get political savvy.
Yeah.
So if the Green Party can do well, and I'm not talking about landslide, I'm just talking about doing well. Maybe taking control of a few councils even.
Yeah.
And they can perform better than Reform have done, as they've taken the councils.
They can kind of keep up the middle over the next few elections, here and there, while the Tories and Labour and Reform are all fighting each other.
But what we will learn is, whether people are taking Zach seriously or not.
Yeah.
And whether he's Dana Mandani, the New York mayor, whether he's actually been able to galvanise people behind his idea of the Green Party and where it stands on the political spectrum. You know, it's all very.
So, right.
I find it fascinating looking in from the outside, watching Zach Polanski. You know?
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting.
from according to Open Council data, this is the latest numbers that they have for in terms of councillors at the moment. Party total councillors, according to their latest they have here. It says that a Green Party have 894, Reform has 962, Lib Dems 3,200. That's all. That's I believe that's UK as a whole, just for 4,200, and Labour 5,900 there. It says the SNP 413 and Applied 199 there currently. What they have there. So I would say 894 is quite a there's definitely a lot there. Obviously not on the same level as the three main parties there. Both Reform and the Greens don't have the same council levels at the moment as the three other bigger parties. But once they get into those, if they get into those numbers, obviously that will take them a bit more. Again, again, it forces the mainstream media, well, a Green Party in particular, like, because the mainstream media don't like talking about the Greens unless it's negative news, of course. But it kind of forces their hands to talk about them a bit more there. But it's quite interesting to just see the kind of the council numbers there. I was just looking at them there from that. But yeah,
while you're on your search in there, how many councillors are there in England?
How many councils in England?
No, councillors.
Councillors.
Local elected representatives. It'll give us a better idea of the scale we're talking about that Zach's going to try and overcome.
No, I don't want to. Just give me the answer. There are roughly 17,000 principal councils in England, is what it says.
Right, so we'll call that 17,000 councillors. The Greens have 800. If Zach can double that number, he's making progress.
That's quite a big jump there, isn't? It's quite a big jump from what they've got. But I mean, as long as they are gaining rather than losing, that's also a positive thing as well. As long as they're going in the right direction, that's the main thing.
Right.
So we've been talking a lot about obviously 2026 started off with a bang, because one thing Donald Trump wants to do is start the new year with a bang. And what better way to do it than to kidnap, not capture as the mainstream media like to call it, but kidnap a foreign leader. Something that I'm sure plenty of autocrats out there like to do, would love to do if they have the muscle to do so. The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, was kidnapped. I'm not going to use the mainstream media's term of capture, because it wasn't capture, it was fucking kidnapped. And yes, I'm fully aware, and people are more than willing to put that in the comments. Yes, I'm fully aware that Nicolas Maduro did not win the election the year before. Democratically, he rigged the election in his favor, and he clamped down on people who went against him. I'm all aware of that, and I made my point very clear about that on my channel very, very much. But that doesn't justify what he did in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that they are making this whole story about a narco terrorist is so much bollocks. And the worst part about it is, for all the people who say that Trump is liberating Venezuela, or he's going to make Venezuela great again, he only kidnapped the leader. The whole administration is still there. The opposition leader, who was supposed to be the shoehorn to be going in there, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, which Trump was not still happy about, by the way, just for reference. She got kicked to the curb on all of this. Donald Trump has absolutely lost his mind. As of right now, just for reference as well, guys, it doesn't look like the US is going to intervene in Iran. I think the only reason I think that he's not going to, it's not because he doesn't want to. I think it's because there's a few Arab nations that have basically said to him, don't do this or we'll hurt you, because they've already had enough shit on their plate with Israel as it is. So I don't think it's actually, because I think people around him have been saying how, and Israel, of course, been poking them really hard to do something about the protest in Iran. But I actually think it's the other Arab nations that kind of stepped in and basically said, if you do this, we'll do X, Y, and Z, possibly threats to them. It's obviously not the same issue here. We will talk about ICE in a moment, but David, I'll start with you. I mean, like, what on earth has this, like, can you believe what has happened since the start of this year with this Trump
Yes,
administration?
I can, because I've been tracking the dollar for the last while, and it's in decline as the BRIC nations start to trade with each other with their own currencies, which means the dollar's taking a hammering. And the petrodollar specifically is taking a hammering as these nations start to trade oil in their own currencies rather than the petrodollar. So yes, I can believe what Trump doesn't even have to pump the oil out of Venezuela. He just needs the reserves to prop up the dollar. So yes, I can believe. I'm more worried about the fact that there's a huge amount of US troops being moved into these islands, and I still think Greenland's just a side skirt, because Trump, in order to prop up the dollar, needs control of oil reserves. The more oil he controls, because when we look at the BRIC nations right now, that's where the majority of the world's oil reserves are, in the BRIC nations. And Venezuela is in there in the waiting list to join the BRICS. So that means that their reserves will be taken out of the dollar as well. So there's a background story here that most people are not getting, and that is that the petrodollar, which props up the US currency, is failing in the international market. And when you track the dollar and you see how low it's came against the euro, like today, a dollar is worth 88 cents in euro denomination. That's no good. It might be good for American exporters, but it's no good for propping up their currency. It's no good for keeping them number one in the reserve basket. Complicated stuff, I understand that. But as I say, there is a side story here that most people are missing. And that is that the dollar is starting to fail as the BRIC nations start to trade in other currencies than the dollar when we're talking about energy resources and we're talking about fuel. And that's a big hit to the USA. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to reverse. He's trying to get control of the major oil reserves on the planet in order to prop up the US currency, which is the number one in the reserve currency basket. And it's called the petrodollar, folks. You can look it up.
Yeah. So we can allege when they negotiated with the Morado government before basically handing Nicolas Morado over, they basically said, you guys can stay in power as long as you keep the petrodollar. I'm assuming that's pretty much what it was.
Because the oil and the petrodollar, that's basically what it was. That's why people with Exxon and that have said they won't go in, the big US oil companies, because what they're saying is a change in administration could change that situation altogether. You know, and remember, Venezuela were on and are on the waiting list to join the BRICS economies. So there's a lot more there that the average Joe is not actually seeing.
Yeah. You know? So when people think, oh, they've liberated Venezuela, they honestly don't give a shit about Venezuela, because if they gave a shit, they'd be doing a lot more around the world, guys.
The control of Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Now, the Americans are also aware of the vast oil reserves of the west coast of Scotland. We all talk about the North Sea and the west of Shetland, but nobody's talking about right down the west coast. And there is huge oil and gas reserves down the west coast of Scotland. In fact, where we have Hunterston Point, it was first looked at. That's in Ayrshire on the west coast of Scotland. It was first looked at by Texaco to put in an oil refinery because they planned on drilling off the estuary in the Clyde. The reason why that drilling never took place was because of Fastlane Naval Base the nuclear naval base. But there are vast oil reserves off the west coast of Scotland as well. And that worries me because Trump's loading this place up with soldiers. Is he going for Greenland? Is he coming for us?
That's my mind.
I would certainly be. It would be. So you wouldn't be surprised at all if. Well, I would say they probably would try and push the UK government into making sure they're selling that, pumping more oil and selling it for the petrodollar, rather than actually going in with troops or any kind of espionage play, wouldn't they? Probably that would probably be more of the Americans' ploy here, rather than.
I would imagine so, but Trump's a lunatic, so you just never know.
He is a lunatic. He is a lunatic.
No, he felt comfortable threatening Canada, so I think he just likes us. Otherwise, he'd have threatened us as well by now.
Doesn't need to threaten us. He's loading the place up with troops. He'll just tell Starmer, "I'm in charge now. You're the 51st."
Isn't he 18 American bases across Britain, across the UK?
Yes.
Don't quote me on that number, but I know it's quite a high number. I think it's in the teens.
Dan, what do you make of all this?
Well, when you mentioned the start of the year, I thought you were going to talk about Donald Trump's opening message of peace on earth for a slight second before you mentioned Venezuela. But I saw the message there with stood next to Melania with anti-Trump hat, that bat. keep him away from it. They got a New Year's message for the world, peace on earth, and all that stuff. Next thing you know, he's invading Venezuela. But
what a way to start the year.
Yeah, and you could tell straight away that it was for him in his own eye, and it was for the oil. It was nothing to do with the drugs and whatever and all that. And I also get the feeling that that lunatic, the one that sleeps in a coffin, Stephen Miller, is having a lot of influence. Yeah, Stephen Miller. Yeah, and I remember in that Friday Frolic where that woman, she had that board, and when she talked about the petrodollar and stuff like that, I found that fascinating. And I thought
really good, that video, because I shared it on my live stream as well. Yeah,
because I think she's onto something there. I think and so I just thought that was very, very, and like I saw one or two other. I remember you Bruce, something I didn't know that they have a lot of gold in Venezuela, don't they? Apparently.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how interesting! How very, very interesting.
Rare earth minerals is the term we use these days, Darren.
Yeah, minerals. Yeah, minerals. Yeah. So, but like the other day, I was slightly getting worried because I was making fried egg on toast and I had 2 fryers going on with oil, and I thought, I'm not expecting here any minute, am I?
They're kind of smashing through the windows. Hand over that oil.
Yeah. But yeah, and I just think to myself, we've got another 3 years of this.
Nah, he'll be gone, Darren. He's bad for business.
13 main USA F locations, apparently.
Is that what they've got left? 13. They did. Graham's right. There was 18 to 22 of them at one point.
It does say, just for reference, it does say those numbers fluctuate and some smaller sites are less public. So there's
US bases.
So it's very possible the number is that the number is higher.
I think Graham's right. The number is higher, and with the ones
we just don't know where they are. It's just the ones that we know according to records. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Aye.
So there. I don't know. Like right now, really, the US are like we're talking about the oil, and obviously gold right now is very valuable because it's going up like mad. Yes. Considering the direction that the globe
silver is actually silver price is quite high as well at the moment.
That's surprising because silver hit rock bottom for a while, didn't it?
It did half high.
Yeah, I wish I had some gold somewhere to hide, so I could watch it go up in value as well. But but
I don't need to hide it. Sarah wears it. Nobody's getting near her.
Got a
if you've
few
got
old
any
rings that my
value,
mum left me.
guys, if you're carrying any gold, just be careful, yeah, because if people find out you're carrying real gold, it's going to be worth that. It's worth a lot of money nowadays.
Yeah.
I guess Sarah's
Speaking
not going out again.
Speaking of things that have been terrifying, guys, as we've been talking a bit about Trump and America, obviously what's been happening with regards to ICE has been incredibly, I would say, disturbing, very frightening, very authoritarian. I don't know how many people in the chat and how many of you guys here have seen the clips and videos online of how ICE have conducted themselves, in particular with what's been happening in Minneapolis. And of course, our thoughts and prayers goes to, oh God, please give me her name.
Is it really good or something? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened to her? I don't give a shit what the American justice system is saying. It was murder, pure and simple.
Yeah,
like I've seen enough footage to realize that. I know there's supposed to be a system, you have to hear their sides of the stories, but come on, there was enough people there and there was enough footage and angles to verify it. And I just feel like that this year in particular, they were already bad They were already bad under Trump. But I feel like they've been told to ramp up what they are doing even more this year. And I think it's for a number of reasons. I think it's one, to really try and entice people to fight back, and not in a peaceful way, but in a violent way, to be more brutal. And in doing so, to give any excuse, because Donald Trump literally said it today, any excuse to impose the Insurrection Act. Because he literally said that today, that Donald Trump has threatened to use the Insurrection Act to end the protests in Minneapolis. He wants that. He wants an excuse to delay or cancel the midterm elections coming up this year in America. He definitely wants that because he knows he's going to get a bollocking. There's a lot of Republicans that, even though Republicans do support the reduction of immigration, which they are seeing, there's a lot of them as well who are not comfortable about the way they are conducting themselves in them. Now, luckily, most of these are in blue states, but there are obviously are in blue states. But the fact that they are seeing this and seeing what is happening is very concerning indeed. There will be, unfortunately, there's some idiot Americans who are still going to back this no matter what. But it definitely opens up a lot of independents' eyes into just how terrifying the situation is right now. You have a lot of situation, the unfortunate situation, and this is what's really heartbreaking. And I covered some of this yesterday, guys. It's gotten to a point now where it doesn't matter if you are a US citizen or not. If you are a black, if you are a brown, if you are Hispanic, if you are somebody that is of any of that, you will be targeted by ICE. It doesn't matter if you have your passport on you. It doesn't matter if you scream and shout you're a US citizen. They will still grab you. They took someone out of a Target store on the simple basis that this person, even though he was a US citizen, and they dumped him at another place, like I think it was like 8 minutes away or whatever, and he was banged up and bleeding and whatnot, even though he was a US citizen. There's no accountability whatsoever for these mindless thugs at all. And I said this before Trump came in. I said to people to get out while you can, because it will get worse. And it has gotten worse. And now people are living in fear every single day now because of what ICE are doing. And they feel powerless. They feel hope, and they feel very powerless. And when you get backed up into a corner, what are you going to do? You end up going to turn violent. And I do fear that America is going to end up in that situation where people are going to fight back, and they're going to fight back violently because, you can only take so much of this.
Yeah, that's where they're heading.
It's exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah.
A reason to clamp down, a reason to become an out-and-out dictator, and an absolute reason to introduce martial law, and of course scrap the midterms.
Yeah, he wants to stop the midterms, and he wants people to stop talking about the Epstein files.
Yes, but this isn't something that we haven't seen before. This has happened regularly since the 1930s. And when we look at states that have become fascist and dictator-led states, this is how they behave. Trump's ICE is the Nazis' version of the brown shirts stroke SS.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the playbook's been written. I did a program on fascism, and this is straight out that playbook.
Absolutely, everything they do is right down to the list. Is the fascist takeover playbook.
Yes.
Even
And
just the
it's
language they
ruined by
use
terror.
every single time they speak. They throw in all these little buzzwords and phrases and blame certain things on certain people.
He will find they will try and look at any and all ways to do so. But mind you, though, this administration don't give a shit about rules and laws anyway. But yeah, in a legal point of view, as Counter Kev is saying, even in a legal point of view, they can't cancel the midterms from a legal point of view.
Unless there's a national emergency, they can.
Well, Trump's done lots of things that aren't legal so far, and I haven't stopped him yet.
Yeah. What makes you think he's going to listen to that more?
Who
But the
says?
other thing, well, what's to stop them planting loads of ICE agents all around the voting booths with intimidation and reputation as well? Like the moment that somebody looks out of odds, they'll just grab them and take them away. Like that intimidation is going to put people off. And the other thing as well is that this is actually it's really hurting
people off the street if they post people outside polling stations. What happens is the ethnic minorities walk on by, looking the other way, hoping that they're not going to be nabbed. That's enough. If you're approaching that polling booth, knowing fine well you're an American citizen, but you've got the brown shirt standing outside the door, you're walking past. You're not going into that polling booth. You're going to the coffee shop in the corner.
Exactly.
No.
I've already seen a video of somebody saying, it's basically saying, enough's enough. The time for talking's over. It's time to take up arms.
I watched a few last night, and there does seem to be people in America saying that the next time they go out to protest, they're taking concealed weapons with them. I think I saw three say that. I saw another fella saying that that we keep saying we've got to wait for the better time. I mean, wait for the worst times. Well, the worst times are here. It's not going to get worse than this. It's time to act. And it was like a 40-minute video of different clips with little bits of commentary in between. But yeah, there is a lot of it going. That's why I say I think he's going to get his insurrection, but it won't be an insurrection. It'll be people standing up for themselves against ICE, but he'll frame it as an insurrection.
Yeah, because what can you imagine what'll happen if an ICE agent is shot dead?
Yeah. This is exactly what they're waiting for. They're waiting for someone to kill an ICE agent, and that will give them all the ammunition they need to say, that's it, we need to impose the Insurrection Act. The rebellion is coming. The radical left are destroying our country. They're killing our own officers now. It's gone too far. That's they just need the excuse to do it. They just need that trigger. It's literally on a knife's edge right now.
Something else that I think is a factor in it, was that I've heard quite a bit about, is they're telling people to film things as much as they can on the phone and saying, this is the first time something like this has happened, where everybody around has got the ability to document it. So whether that'll make a difference.
I think it's very important, Graham.
Yeah, it's vital.
I think it's very, very important.
I
think it's going to become more and more prevalent here as well, as we look at the way they're introducing, the new security bills and things like that in that road. We have to be very, very much on our guard. We've already, if you're here in Scotland, to give you an idea, we're looking on horror at the clampdown on freedom of speech and freedom of expression and the right to protest in England, with the Police Crimes Courts and Sentencing Act and the Security Act. These things are absolutely terrifying.
Yep.
Because they take away your right
to
go out and protest. They silence your voice. And we've seen that. And we've seen it right across the UK with the arrest of David and I. Just for free speech.
Yeah.
And expressing an opinion. So we're not that far behind America, and people have to get that in the forefront of their mind.
Yeah,
And
but
we do have
we'll be all
agitators.
right because Nigel Farage is the king of free speech. So, you know, when he's Prime Minister, we'll be fine.
You know, Graham, I was just about to say we do have agitators within our society, and Nigel Farage is right up there.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm looking at it from a sort of point of view of who the players are and what their roles are.
Yeah.
And Farage is definitely the agitator.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's fascinating to watch the way that the Conservatives and Labour have reacted to this guy, because what they have done rather than oppose this guy has become more authoritarian to appease this guy.
That's emulating.
Yeah.
So they become more authoritarian to appease this guy rather than standing up to this guy. And that tells us that we are moving in the wrong direction as well.
Yeah. While Russia, even though they are still sanctioned to a certain extent because of their war in Ukraine, they're still loving the fact that the West is failing. Luckily, the EU is still holding. The EU is not doing as terrible, but it is certainly being it's certainly getting an influence very slowly from within as well.
You've got to have a look at how clever Russia and China have been here. As Russia has been sanctioned, China's absorbed, and India and the other BRIC nations have absorbed everything that Russia would have sold to the West. And that's fascinating, especially as they've built their new alliance in the BRICS. And if people don't understand what the BRICS is and how its expansionism is beginning to build an EU of these alienated nations, these designated alienated nations by the Western Hemisphere, and you watch the way the BRICS have been compiling members to the Middle East, the Far East, South America, you can see that there's a divide being built. Now, we have to put a stop to that, but we have to do it with commonality and with acceptance rather than putting up a new iron curtain.
Yeah. It all seems to be about division instead nowadays.
It's very important. I don't think people are quite aware of the big players and what's going on, and the way that the world is actually sectioning itself off with the North and Southern Hemisphere and the East and Western Hemisphere, and how they're rewriting alliances. It's very important that people start to understand the balance, because all our lives are affected by this.
Yeah.
And I would say the minimal player in this whole game is Trump. He is the least of our problems. Our problems are more centered in the fact that rather than becoming closer together, as the world has been doing for the last 40 odd years since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the drop of the Iron Curtain, we're starting to drift apart again.
Definitely.
And it's definitely deliberate, Graham.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching it being instigated by our own leaders as we see the fight.
Putin, I think, Putin is a big part in that, I think.
Yeah, it's all about natural resources, of course.
Yeah.
The population begin to outstrip what we can do, which is actually isn't true. If we were to put our energies into husbanding the planet to feed the population and to make sure the population did well, we would have peace and prosperity. But that's not what we're doing. We're saying, you've got this right now and we need it. So we're coming in, we're bigger, we're stronger, we're richer, and we're taking it.
Yeah, I remember reading a report I got a little while back that some scientists had worked out that the Earth can support about 10 billion people comfortably if everything is distributed evenly. And at the moment, we can't support 7 billion because everything's so unequal.
And it's good today with states saying, I need this now. You've got it and I'm doing it because I'm more powerful than you.
Yeah.
Rather than actually having a look at the whole situation as a whole and saying we all live in this one sphere. Let's make sure everybody has what they need. Now, when we talk about the breakdown of the socialist society from 1947 to 1979, that was based on need and no greed. We had overextended ourselves with the Second World War, and then, of course, we had entered into a period where we were trying to build a society where everybody was cared for, and that's bloody expensive. The cost was the empire and the revenue of the empire. That was taken over, of course, by America. And that shows in the 70s as we moved from the gold standard to the petrodollar, and the post-Second World War, the deal was we owed America and the other states so much fucking money that we had to give up on it. We had to give up that so-called empire. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to this planet, actually. Unfortunately, the Americans stepped in.
Didn't it take until like the mid-2000s or something to pay the debt off from the war?
2008, I think it was either 2007 or 2013, Graham. I would need to look it up.
Yeah, I remember reading something about that.
I remember the announcement being made that the war debt was paid off. And at that point in time, I thought, okay, it's time to start backing off with fucking America. You can see the direction it was going in as its empire started to fail with its overreach. I mean, they've got over 1,800, they've got over 800 bases worldwide. They're no cheap to run.
They spend well over $1 trillion, don't they, on their military? So it's an insane amount of money they spend. It's an insane amount of money they spend on the military. It's ridiculous, absolutely insane. More than most countries on this planet. Like that, the amount of money they spend. It's insane. And that's not even talking about money that they give to Israel, by the way, for their military. Never mind aid.
And that's money they admit spending.
It's
not including black projects and things.
Yep.
And we have to remember the money they bring in with their crooked CIA. They're one of the biggest drug dealers on the planet, apparently. I'm not going to say that's verified, but apparently it's true.
No, I've heard it before.
Every time I hear when it comes to bases in our country, it always reminds me of that TV series, you could say, Channel 4, very British girl, where Harry Perkins is trying to go neutrality and trying to get rid of bases. Americans won't have a bat of it.
See, it takes me back to the oil that's on the west coast of Scotland. We can't access it because the Americans wanted to base their nuclear somewhere. Well, the UK government wanted the Americans to base their their nuclear submarines at that point there. No, I mean, the fact that it's there is a verifiable fact. You can look it up yourself. There's something called the subsea report for the McPhail institution, which was in 2002 by the Department of then Trade and Industry. That's what it was called back then. So you can look that up and look at the amount of reserves we have here.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the Americans taking us out.
Is there going to be? So I think coming close to the end, guys, because as I said at the start of this live stream, guys, I do have a banging headache, and I did say
paracetamol helped.
I took paracetamol already, guys, just for reference. What I suppose as we roll back towards the UK, because we touched on quite a few different things here. Right now, this Labour government have done so many U-turns. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a bit hypocritical for the Conservatives to talk about U-turns, considering how shambolic they were. But given the fact that we can talk about the Conservatives all we want, but if Labour are in charge right now, they've been in power for more than a year and a half. And obviously, while it's logical and understandable that it takes time to fix things and it does to break things, you would have thought that some common sense would come through, considering that they're not the Conservatives. That has not happened, unfortunately. So I guess this is I'm going to put a straight up forward question to each and every one of you on this one. Will Keir Starmer still be the Prime Minister by the end of this year? Graham, start with you.
I think he might limp through to the end of the year. A lot depends on the elections, but I think he's not going to get. It's not going to be that they're going to go in expecting to do well and then do really badly, and it's going to be everyone's at him saying, "Oh, you've led us to a defeat," because they're already expecting to do quite badly. So I don't think that's going to be as much of an impact on him as people think it is. Whether he'll take us to the next election, I don't know. I find that doubtful, but I think he might limp through to the end of the year. Especially with this thing that's happening with the Tories and reform, that might help him a bit.
Darren, what do you think? Keir Starmer still Prime Minister by the end of this year?
I think I'm in agreement with Graeme, really. I think he will do. It's like, who else is going to replace him?
Exactly.
Who's the yeah, you could tell he's very sly at what he does. He knows exactly what he's doing. He does West Street in. He's sort of like he's playing the game while acting out as though loyal to the leader. So he's very good at what he does. But
would he want it? She's got
who's that? Who's that?
Yvette Cooper.
Cooper.
Been around for years, hasn't she? Doing all sorts of different things. She's a confident lady. I think she could swoop in. She did stand at the last leadership election, didn't she? Didn't she come third?
I'm not sure.
I get the feeling that I don't get the feeling he'll limp on to end of the year, but come the year after, I get the feeling it'll be a case of it's either his team goes or he goes. Either way, if you know what I mean, he either gets rid of him or they'll get rid of him. Yeah.
All he groans was spine and sacks Morgan McSweeney, which would be actually one of the best things that he would do in that government.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well. David, what do you think? Is he going to be gone by the end of this year?
You know, it's a really interesting question, and I'm not quite sure how to answer it because he's survived so far.
Mm-hmm.
It would appear that in recent months, he's been left there as a figurehead, but the backbenches are running the party at this point in time. So could he be left there as a stuffed shut? Will the backbenchers run? What's going on? When you look at the 13 U-turns that he's done, and I listed them the day REGANELITE, I know you watched it. So I know you know what the 13 U-turns he's done because I listed them, every one of them.
Oh, don't worry, 14's coming. Don't worry.
Aye, but the thing is, those U-turns were forced by his own backbenchers, no anybody else. And at this point in time, it looks like he is just a figurehead, and the backbenchers are in charge. That's unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
How long is it sustainable for? Well, Graeme and Darren might be right. It might limp up through to the end of the year, beginning the next year.
Yeah. The thing is for me, I heard something that spoke about it, and I think there is something in it. I think it's because it's the way he's made. It's the lawyer in him. He doesn't he'll get a brief, and because he's got no political ideology, he'll just get a brief and he'll think, right, what's the best way to get the best result for my client? And I just think that's the way he operates. And I don't think he realizes that the people around him, they have their own political ideology. He thinks, well, if it's just like they're talking about immigration, and it's like, well, if you want to bring down immigration, then this is how we'll do it. Well, to please you, but the trouble is they're not going to please. They're not happy. Not happy anyway.
I find that fascinating because in the past, our politicians have all operated under a political ideology.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you had socialism, you had liberalism, you had communism, you had fascism. Yeah. They all operated under an ideology. At this point in time, they're sort of rolling the ball and playing with them all.
Yes, in a very sort of lawyerly manner when you think about it, hasn't he? Because lawyers do represent sometimes have to represent beliefs that they don't necessarily hold themselves in court.
Right.
And that seems to be what he's doing as a Prime Minister.
As I say, I find it fascinating that all these ideologies are becoming meshed and confused. You know?
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, guys, I want to say, first of all, thank you, GRAEMEPRYCE, David Blasé, and Dave McGuinness for coming on tonight. I really appreciate you guys giving your time. I really do appreciate it. I apologize, guys, that I don't know if I was all right or not, but I've had a migraine non-stop throughout all day today.
You've led
Nobody noticed.
You've led the debate really well, Regan, and you've kept control of the programme really well.
Yes.
And that's important when you've got a round table. You need a chairman, somebody to direct the conversation, and you've done that really, really well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You've kept me on a leash. You've kept me on a leash because you know when I get going, I'm off. Like,
and you've also been able to rein me in, Reganelite, by bringing others in before I spoke. So you have really conducted it very well. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. And I want to say thank you to everyone who came along tonight. Thank you guys for all your comments. Obviously, we do appreciate all your comments. Hopefully, everyone did get to see your comments. Obviously, it's hard to respond to comments, obviously, when there's 4 of us here, but I'm sure you guys understand. But we appreciate you guys contributing to this tonight. I just want to let people know the next roundtable, if I've got my calendar right here. Let me pull it up here. The next one is not scheduled until the 26th of February, just for reference there. And I'll see if I can get Mikey Famine to join us for that one, because he said he wanted to be on. He wanted to be on one, but obviously I couldn't get him on this one because this only has a maximum of 4. I know David said I should use Restream. It is on my list of things to do.
Let me tell you how simple it is, Restream. I'm a techno fucking idiot and I can operate it, Regan.
Tell me off stream. Tell me off stream. Okay. You can tell me off stream before we log off. Guys, a quick reminder. Before I go live tomorrow at 11 o'clock for a usual Good Morning show, there is Dave McGuinness has his morning round papers at 10:30. Please join him for that. Otherwise, he will put you on the naughty step, which you can see behind him in his screen there. You don't want to be on it. Trust me, it's not very nice, guys. I can assure you of that. So do join him for that. It's really, really good. And of course, I'll be live at 11 o'clock for the Good Morning show. So if you guys want to join me for an hour, you can do as well. And then finally, guys, on later on that day at 5 o'clock, you can see it on Darren's head, the Friday Frolics with Daily Blasé. Do join him for that live stream. It is, I really do mean this, guys. Like, even if you're not even into politics, it's still a lot of fun. It's a lot of banter. It's a really fun show, and he puts a lot of work into that live stream. He really does.
Best show of the week, Regan.
It is, guys. It really is. We're not just saying that. It really is a great fun show. If you can attend it, please do, because trust me, you'll have a great time. I can't recommend it enough. And of course, having said all that, do check out our. Although he doesn't live stream yet, I'm sure he's going to be try and maybe do a couple more in the future. GRAEMEPRYCE, of course.
Yeah, he's done a couple.
Do check out his YouTube channel as well, because he now has to find 5 more reasons why Robert Jenrick is a twat now, because he joined Reform UK. So
that will be hard.
No, it won't be hard.
We're expecting a new one on Robert Jenrick now from you, Graham. So the pressure is on.
I'm looking forward to that one, Graham.
But links for all YouTubers are in the description, guys. If you're not subscribed to any of their channels, please do, because it really does help support everyone. And again, guys, thank you all for coming along. Thank you guys for all your comments, and we will catch you all very, very soon, I'm sure. So I'm just going to scroll over to the end live stream button and say thank you, everyone. Good night, and take care of yourselves. As always, we appreciate you guys giving your time for us. Thank you again, guys.